Hello everyone. Oops. Please tell me whether you can hear me, whether you can see well this. Can you?
Yes.
Okay. Fine. Fine. So currently there are 23 practically students. I hope more of them will join. Well, it's 8:30 sharp, so let's start. So today we'll brush up on morphology, we'll do some of the tasks from the handout, and that's it for today. So let's very briefly, we'll repeat what morphology is. So what's morphology generally speaking? In a single sentence. What does it study? And let's preferably once again hear somebody who we haven't heard so far. So any colleague with 0 points. Yana, do you have any points? Yana?
No.
Okay, so please, Yana.
Well, it's a linguistic discipline which studies words and their structure.
Indeed, as simple as that. It is a linguistic discipline that studies words and their structure.
Yes.
That's it. Okay. What are what are morphemes? So what's the basic unit of the study of morphology? What are morphemes? Yana, you can go on, or somebody else can also pop in. So Yana, would you like to go on? Yana?
Извините, лаптоп ми malo koči I onda dok, pošto sam ugasila mikrofon, dok sam opet uključila.
Okay.
Well, a morpheme is a word that has meaning.
But need it only be a word? I mean, all words have meaning. Otherwise, they wouldn't be words. So what's then the difference between a word and a morpheme?
Well, it can be broken down into the smaller meaningful units.
No, it can't be broken down into the smaller meaningful units because it is the smallest meaningful unit.
Well, I said it can.
Okay, so let's concentrate once again. What are morphemes? So what are they? Feel free to take a look at a handout, at the presentation that we used last time. So it's this one. I mean, it's somewhere up there. So what are morphemes? It's here. So what are they? So they can indeed be words, but for example, we cannot say that the word beautifully or beautiful or careless or carelessly or careful or carefully is a morpheme. No, no, no. We can say that the word care is a morpheme. We can say that full in careful is a morpheme. We can say that less in careless, as in they're quite careless people. They do not pay attention to other people's feelings and so on. So less is also a morpheme. So what are morphemes then? Well, okay, Velimir. Velimir Ivašević. What do you mean when you say they can't be divided? You are right that they can't be divided, but divided into what? For example, I can divide them without any problem whatsoever into, for example, phonemes, which I can then further divide into distinctive features, such as those dealing with voicing and place of articulation and manner of articulation. So when you say they're morphological units, which they indeed are, they can't be divided. What do you mean by can't be divided? Divided into what? They can be rather than can't be. They can be divided into phonemes without any problem, which can then be broken down into distinctive features. So what do you mean when you say they can't be divided? Velimir? Okay, I'll wait for you to type out your answer. That's okay. So I'm still in a way on the lookout for the answer to the question dealing with morphemes. So what are morphemes? So they are not simply words. Beautifully is a word, but it is not a morpheme. Careful is a word, but it is not a morpheme. Careless, he drove carelessly, is not a morpheme. Carelessly is not a morpheme. Relationship is a word, but it's not a morpheme. It's actually made up of two morphemes. So what are morphemes? What are they? Well, yes, Naja, please.
I think that morphemes can be divided into prefixes, suffixes, and affixes.
That's how they are classified, but that's not my question. So my question was not how are morphemes classified, but what are they? So what are morphemes? Okay, Vasilia.
Well, they are the smallest units of meaning.
Yeah,
That have
they're the
meaning.
smallest units of meaning. They're the smallest meaningful units. How are they, in that sense, different from phonemes? So morphemes are the smallest meaningful units, and phonemes are the smallest.
Excuse me, is that a question for me or for
Yeah,
everybody?
just go on. Why not?
The difference is that morphemes generally generally have to have the meaning, and as the difference between
Morphemes and phonemes.
and phonemes don't necessarily have to have meaning, I think.
They actually don't have any meaning. It's not a case that they needn't necessarily have a meaning. They don't have any meaning. If they do, they're not simply phonemes only. They're also morphemes. Okay, so morphemes are practically the smallest meaningful units, and phonemes are the smallest what? Maida?
Phonemes are the smallest constructive units.
I heard constructive. That's not the point. What does it mean to say they're contrastive? Okay, yeah. They're the smallest contrastive units. And we actually kept explaining that during the weeks 3 and 4, so I won't repeat that anymore. Okay, so morphemes are the smallest meaningful units. So they can be broken down into smaller meaningful units. They can be broken down into phonemes, but phonemes are not meaningful. So morphemes are the smallest meaningful units. Maida. Why are the words such as beautiful, beautifully, careful, carefully, careless, carelessly, why are they not morphemes? Successful, successfully, unsuccessful, unsuccessfully. Why are they not morphemes? They are words, but not morphemes. So why is the word beautiful or unsuccessful not a morpheme? Natalia?
Well, because inside of that word there's another smaller word with a meaning.
No, there is no smaller word. In, for example, unsuccessful, that's a word. Un is not a word.
Well, yes, but in the word unsuccessful, there's also the word successful or
Indeed.
success.
Okay.
And the smallest word with a meaning is the morpheme.
It's wrong to say that the smallest word with a meaning is a morpheme. For example, un is not a word in unsuccessful, but it does have meaning. Full in unsuccessful also has some meaning. It's there to tell us, hey, I'm here to signal the adjective derived out of this noun. So full is also not a word, but it has meaning. So once again, so please make sure that these very basic, that these absolutely basic linguistic terms are clear to you. So to all of you. So a morpheme is a word or a part of a word. Nobody said, well, a part of a word, or maybe Natalia now did. So a word or a part of a word that has meaning. In teacher, for example, we cannot once again say that teacher is a morpheme. No, teach is a morpheme, and is also a morpheme. So there are two morphemes there. So a morpheme is a word or a part of a word that has meaning. It can be broken down into smaller meaningful units. So it is the smallest meaningful unit. So it can be broken down into, for example, phonemes, but phonemes are not the smallest meaningful units. They're the smallest contrastive units. 3, they can appear, nobody said this, they can appear in different contexts, preserving a relatively stable meaning. So can appear in, for example, teacher, dancer, writer, speaker, player, and preserve a relatively stable meaning. And that meaning is, well, the doer of a particular action. The teacher is the one who teaches. The dancer is the one who dances. The writer is the one who writes. The speaker is the one who speaks. The player is the one who plays. So they can appear in different contexts, preserving the relatively stable meaning, and they are abstract just like phonemes, which is something that we explained already, and we'll come back to that later on. So once again, morphemes are words or a part of a word that have meaning. They're the smallest meaningful units. They can appear in different contexts, preserving a relatively stable meaning, and they are abstract. Now that morphology deals with words and their internal structure, let's now do, exercise 1 that deals precisely with that. So as it says here, consider the following words and answer the questions that follow. So for each word, determine whether it is simple or complex, and analyze each of the words morphologically. That's to say, underline the roots and circle all the bound morphemes. So the various prefixes and suffixes. And mind you, prefixes and suffixes are also taken to be meaningful. They are not words, but they are morphemes. So they are morphemes because they do have meaning. So let's now simply go on. Let's hear now, let's say Anna Yankovic. Anna has no points. Anna, and you're here in class. So Anna, payment. So this particular word, this particular example here has been done for us. So pay is the root and ment is the suffix. Both things are meaningful. Pay is meaningful and ment is, believe it or not, meaningful as well. So ment is there to tell us something along the following lines. So I'm here, this suffix says, to indicate that this is actually a noun derived out of this verb. So pay is a verb and payment is a noun. So payment is a complex word. It consists of this particular root pay and this bound morpheme ment. Fly is of course a single word and a single morpheme, a single unit of meaning. Just f does not mean anything. L does not mean anything. I in fly does not mean anything. So fly is a single unit of meaning. Let's now go on. Deactivate. Anna Yankovic. Anna? Anna? Okay, Anna, so please use the chat section. So what's the root in deactivate? What are the prefixes, if any? What are the suffixes, if any? We'll wait for your answer. No, it's not activate. No, it's not active. No. If, for example, appears in respond and then responsive, actually. So it appears in responsive. So if is a unit of meaning. It's there to tell us, hey, I'm an adjective out of a verb. I'm here to make an adjective. I'm a suffix that's there to help this verb become an adjective, to derive an adjective out of the verb. So what's an even smaller unit of meaning here? That's the root. It's easy. So if appears in restrictive, for example, in assertive, in something like that. Act, just act. Is there any prefix here? Anna? So just the. How many suffixes are there? How many of them? So if is one suffix. Is there any other suffix here? Act and then if, and what else do we have? That's right, activate. And first we had D. Fine. So here it goes. Deactivate. Act is the root. I underlined it here. And there are three affixes. D, which is a prefix, and if and at, which are suffixes. Let's go on. Anna, yet another example for you. Did. How many morphemes are there? So for example, in deactivate, there are as many as 4 morphemes. So one word and 4 morphemes, 4 units of meaning, one of which is the root and 3 of which are affixes. And among those affixes, there is one prefix and 2 suffixes. What about the word and the D? Anna? Oh, sorry. Yeah, Anna? Yankovic? Did, it's in the handout. So it's here. We're doing the handout. Exercise 1, the word and the D. It's here. Did. How many suffixes? Oh, sorry, how many morphemes? No, that's actually false morphology, what you just said. So why should this be do is the root? No. Did is a single unit of meaning, so there is no do in this root. We just have did, D, and then double E, and then the letter D once again. Did is a single unit. Did is just one single word. So it's not, for example, the imaginary word D, DE, and then the suffix ed. So no. This is a single word. So this is just a single morpheme. A morpheme that is at the same time a word. What about the first next word, Anna? Liver. Liver. And then we'll move to somebody else. Move on to somebody else. What do the other people say? So if it is this way, then we have live kao živjeti I kao the doer of an action. Dakle, ovo znači neko ko živi. Da li to znači ova reč? Liver. Neko ko živi. Ne, sve je to false morphology. Ovo što isto sad vidimo, live I je opet false morphology. Neko je ovdje podigao ruku. Samo nisam vidio ko. Izvoli osoba koja je podigla ruku, da?
I did.
Aha.
I wanted to say that it's a single morpheme.
Yeah, it's a single morpheme, meaning what?
Meaning that it can be divided into
I mean,
smaller units.
what is its meaning? What does it mean? In Serbian, you can use Serbian,
liver.
you can use, yeah. What does it mean?
Jetrana.
Jetra, so as an organ in the human body. So it has nothing special to do with living itself. So it's not the one who lives. It's not a person who lives or something like that. So it's simply an organ in the human body. As such, it is a single unit of meaning. Mind you, we had similar examples in our class as well. So when we had, for example, mushroom or something like that. So mushrooms have nothing to do, and here it is, liver. So morphological analysis of these words. So we covered this word already. We said that if we divided this word into live and we would be doing false morphology, just as it would be false morphology to say that the root in maslina is, for example, slina or something like that, or that the root in olovka is lov, so olovke have nothing to do with hunting or something like that. Mushrooms along the same lines have nothing to do with rooms, wherefore mushroom is a single unit of meaning. Liver, kao jetra, has nothing to do with living itself. So liver is not a person who lives or anything along those lines. It is simply an organ in the human body. So in liver, we have one root and no additional morphemes. In mushroom, we have one root and no additional morphemes. And that is exactly what Natalia Krasic has just said as well. So it is a single unit. So once again, dividing this into live and is false morphology. To je kao recimo da ne znam, Petao ili Petrovgrad ili nešto tako, delimo na pet i onda rov i tako dalje, ili pet i onda ao, dakle Petrovgrad nema nikakve veze sa brojem 5, nego sa Petrom, jel da? Onim njihovim carem Petrom velikim, a ne sa brojem 5. Slično tome petao je opet jedna jedinica značenja, nema veze sa brojem 5. Idemo dalje, ukoliko želiš, Natalija, nastavi. Unbelievably. Aha, evo i ovde sam to uradio. Did, jedan unit of meaning. Liver, jedan unit of meaning. One unit of meaning. Idemo dalje. Natalia, if you wish, you can go on.
Yeah, I can go on.
Yeah.
So, unbelievably.
Yeah.
We have one prefix, un.
Okay.
And it's a complex. I didn't say that. It's a complex
Aha, it's a complex word.
word.
Fine.
Then I think we have an infix.
No.
No? Okay.
No. So what's the root?
Believe.
Okay, if this were an infix, then for example the root would be live, but unbelievably has nothing to do with living. Unbelievably znači neverovatno ili nešto u tom smislu. Unbelievably enough, he did that eventually. Sorry. Dakle, neverovatno je, ali ta osoba je uradila to nešto. Šta god da je uradila. So unbelievably enough, but he eventually did it. Unbelievably has to do with belief. So believe is actually the root here. Believe, that's the root. Believ i dotle tu se završava. Rekla si tačno da imamo prefiks an, odnosno prefiks an. Šta još imamo?
We have, now I don't know what's going on in the end here.
Something can
Not
be
sure.
believable or unbelievable. And then we have believably and unbelievably, which is actually which occurs more often. So how many units of meaning do we have after believe? Namely after here in this word. So after it we can have believable, believably, unbelievable, unbelievably.
2.
Indeed, 2. Ab appears in different versions. Sometimes it is abul, sometimes it is just ab. So believe is a verb. When something is believable, to nešto je može u njega da se veruje ili u to nešto da se veruje. Yeah, that's quite believable. What you told me is quite believable, for example, in a particular context. Okay, and then we have believably. So when we start, okay, I actually forgot to provide a solution here, but okay, I'll do it this way. At least I cannot find it here. So believe is the root. We underline believe, believ. We circle an, we circle ab, and we circle li. Okay, I actually skipped the example with motherly. Natalia, if you wish, please go on back to motherly.
Okay, I think it
Okay,
has.
so that was the first next example that we should have done. Not I actually skipped 2 or 3 examples. So fine, motherly.
I think it has 2 morphemes.
Okay, motherly indeed. So mother and then
And
ly.
li.
Okay, motherly love, neka majčinska recimo ljubav ili kako god. Natalia, why not this way? Moth and then and then li. Moth does have meaning. It means moljac. Does have meaning. Can, for example, can appear in, for example, teacher or dancer, or for example, smarter or nicer or richer or poorer or something like that. And eventually, li. So why not this way?
Because it has nothing to do with moths.
Indeed,
It's about
mothers
mother.
have nothing whatsoever to do with moths. So this would be false morphology once again. So what you said is, of course, correct. Fine, thank you so much. Let's now move on. So let's now move on to yet another person who will do the next 2 examples, hopelessness and mushroom. Let's preferably hear, let's say, Mina Chiric. Mina has no points. Mina. Mina? Mina. Mina. Mina? Mina? Yeah, Mina Chiric is here. Mina? 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 So no Mina. Okay. Katarina Vojinovic. Katarina? Katarina also has no points, and there is no reason why there should be so. So, Katarina, can we hear you? At least in chat or via the mic. Katarina? So the next example. Hopelessness. Yeah, Katarina Vojinovic is here. Katarina. Okay. Yeah. We'll wait for your answer. Sorry, I can't see now. What was the question? The question is the morphological analysis of the next word here, and that is hopelessness. What's the root? What are the affixes? So once again, hopelessness is not a morpheme. It is actually a group of morphemes. So what's the root? What are the affixes? What's the root in hopelessness? Beznađe. Hope, hopelessness, hope. Yeah, hope is the root. How many affixes? I can't see. Yeah, what are they? Indeed, hope, less, and ness. Fine. So hope can either be a noun or a verb. Hopeless when something he's hopeless, which can actually be ambiguous, but still less is practically an adjective forming suffix. It helps us create adjectives out of, for example, nouns and verbs, which hope can be. And a ness is a noun forming suffix. It helps us create nouns practically out of adjectives sometimes, as it is the case here. So yes, Katerina is right. This is how we analyze the word hopelessness. Katerina, please go on. And all of you, so please, if you can, try and secure a microphone. So microphones are quite inexpensive. There are microphones that you can buy for 100 dinars. That's less than €1. And obviously, microphones are quite important in our classes. So I would like to hear you speak. I would like to hear you speak English. I would like to hear you interact with me. So make sure that you make that investment. It's quite inexpensive. It's just a piece of plastic practically with a simple technology. So a 100 dinar microphone is not too expensive, and it's obviously quite important. Mushroom. Mushroom, Katarina. And I actually mentioned that last week and 10 minutes ago as well. So mushroom, how many morphemes there? In its entirety, there is in a way a spelling mistake here, but okay. Yeah, the entire word practically. You are right. You are right. Fine. That's it. Thank you so much, Katarina. Okay, just a moment. Let's now move on. So we have covered the word unbelievably as already. So here it is. Believe is the root, un is the prefix. There are two suffixes. Let's now move on to the next three words: unselfish, rubbish, and manner. Unselfish, rubbish, and manner. So let's hear somebody else now. Let's hear, let's say, Ilya Tsvetanovich. Ilya is here in class. Yeah, here he is. And currently, Ilya has no points. Ilya, the next three examples and their morphological analysis: unselfish, rubbish, and manner. Ilya. 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 Please give it a try if you're with us. So what's the root? What are the affixes? Is there any prefix? Is there any suffix? Let's say, what are the affixes? What's the root? Are these monomorphemic words? Are they polymorphemic words? Are they simple? Are they complex? So those are some of the notions that we introduced last time: simple words, complex words, compound words, complex compound words, and so on. So what are the roots here? What are the affixes, if any? Ilya? Oops. Ilya? Okay, so there is no Ilya here. Sanya Markovic? Or Sonia Markovic? It's either Sanya or Sonia.
It's Sanya.
Okay, Sanya Markovic. So Sanya, we can hear you fine. So unselfish, rubbish, and manner. Unselfish. Is there any root here?
I think that it's self.
Indeed, it's self. Fine. Self. Okay.
So the
What's the
prefix
suffix?
is
Okay, the prefix is an. What's the suffix?
Ish.
Indeed, ish. In selfish. So self kao nekako, da tako kažem, jastvo. Selfish, kada je neko selfish, so that person is quite practically too much focused on himself or herself. So too much concentrated, too much focused on the self, that's selfish, and the opposite of that is unselfish. So mind you, un does have meaning here. Un means the opposite of selfish. ish here, believe it or not, does have meaning. It's practically there to help us create an adjective out of the noun self. So jedno je self, a drugo je selfish. Okay. What about rubbish, Sonia? So it's Sonia, is that right?
It's Sanya.
Oh, sorry,
with
I'm
A.
sorry. So it's Sanya. Fine, Sanya, please.
I'm not sure, but
Uh-huh.
I think that it's also complex word. I think that the root is rub. Maybe.
No. What does rubbish have to do with rubbing? So you can, for example, rub the floor. What does that have to do with rubbish? Sa smećem. Na primjer, u smeće možemo da odbacimo tipa tetrapa kod jogurta, možemo da odbacimo neki stari papir, možemo, ne znam, očistili smo jabuku pa smo i delove neke jabuke odbacili. Kakve to veze ima sa ribanjem? Poda, recimo.
So is it simple?
Yeah, it is a simple word. It is a single root. So here it is, just a mo. Unselfish, this is what you said, what you did correctly. And rubbish is simply a single word and a single morpheme, a single unit of meaning that can be broken down into smaller units of meaning. What about mana? Sanya?
Is it also simple?
You are right. Dakle, ovo nije man kao čovek i onda manner. Manner znači način i to nema nikakve naročite veze sa imenicom man. Dakle, ovo je jedan unit of meaning, jedna morfema. Fine, thank you, Sanya, so much. Let's now move on. Anybody? Yes, please. Who's that?
It's me, sir.
Okay.
But Vanya, I already have 3 points.
I know. Okay, so I can always give precedence to somebody with a fewer number of points, so I'll wait a little bit, let's say 10 seconds. So if there is anybody else who would like to give it a try, they're welcome. Yes, please, you are?
Mariana.
Mariana, how many points do you have?
I have 2 points.
Fine, okay, Mariana. So transfer, inject, and unlikelihood.
Transfer is a complex word. The root is fer.
Uh-huh.
And trans is the prefix.
Yeah, right. They are very special in a way about this root fer.
I'm not sure.
Can it stand alone? For example, hope in hopelessness can stand alone. Pay in payment can stand alone. Act in deactivate can stand alone. Believe in unbelievably can stand alone. So can stand alone. And so on. However, phi in transfer, can it stand alone as well? And we talked about that last Monday.
I believe it can.
It can or can't? Or can't?
Can't.
It can't, okay. So it can't stand on its own. So practically, what did you underline? What did you circle here?
I circled the trans and the underlined fer.
And what about doing yet another thing? So there is yet another thing that should have been circled as well. It says circle all the bound morphemes. So here it is. So we said everything apart from this last circle. So this last circle should be used here as well. So fa is indeed a root, but it is also a bound morpheme. That's what we said last time. So let's find it here. Transfer. So this is what we talked about last time. So fa is a bound root, and we circle it as well because it's a bound morpheme. We'll come to bound morphemes in a minute. Okay, so here we have this root fer and this prefix transfer. However, this particular root is quite actually specific in the sense that it cannot possibly stand on its own, as opposed to the majority of other roots. It, of course, comes from Latin fero fere tuli latum, which means to practically carry. So to transfer means to carry across. Okay, let's now move on. Inject.
I'm not really sure, but I think it's a simple one.
No, it's not. Namely, this
well,
eject thing need not only appear in inject, it can appear in project, in reject, in something
okay,
like that.
then in is a prefix and ject is the root.
Okay, if this is a root, it is also a morpheme, so it is a unit of meaning. What does ject mean?
I'm not really sure.
Kako beše na latinskom, ono kocka je bačena kada je Cezar odlučio da pređe reku Rubikon sa severa i da uđe u rimsko, čini mi se, carstvo da u tom periodu, pre nego li republiku, mada možda i republika, nisam 100% siguran, i da dovede do veoma velikih promena tamo. Da, čini mi se, sebe proglasi za cara. Da? Da pogazi parlament i njegove odluke, odnosno senat i njegove odluke i tako dalje. Dakle, kako se kaže kocka je bačena?
Alea jacta est.
Alea jacta est. Dakle, ovo ject je od jako, jacere, jeci, jactum. Oni koji su išli u gimnaziju i učili latinski, znaju. Dakle, jako, jacere, jeci, jactum znači baciti. Inject u tom smislu znači ubaciti. And then we have an injection, of course, which is, of course, a very fitting name for an instrument that is used to practically insert a particular substance into our body, be it, for example, a vaccine or anything of the sort. So in means, of course, u, and inject means baciti, to throw. And then we have inject. Is check the free root here? Can it stand on its own? Can we just say eject?
It can.
Sorry, it can or can't? Or
It
can't?
Can't.
Please repeat.
It's not possible for it to stand alone.
Indeed. So that's why I did this. So I did it actually twice mistakenly. So here it is. It's N. Inject. So we underline ject because that's the root, baciti. In is the prefix, but I have also circled ject because it's a bound root. Eventually, unlikelihood. So the last question for you.
Well, like is the root here.
Indeed,
and,
like, okay.
We have a prefix that's on, and two suffixes li and hood.
You are right. So like and then likely, in a way, they are sort of related. It's quite likely to happen. That's quite unlikely to happen. Okay, so li is a morpheme as well, a unit of meaning. Hood is also a unit of meaning. For example, brotherhood, it does, so a brotherhood of whatever, priests or some people or something like that. Here it's unlikelihood. Likelihood bi bilo verovatnoća. Unlikely nešto nije, jel da, verovatno da će se dogoditi. Dakle, sve ove stvari imaju poneko značenje svoje. Hood is there is practically a noun forming suffix. It's there to help us create nouns out of adjectives such as likely or unlikely. Okay, fine. So these are the very fundamentals of morphology. At this point, I would like to skip exercise 2 and move on to exercise 3, and we'll go back to exercise 2 if there is enough time at the end of the class. Let's now move on. So let's talk a little bit about classification of morphemes. And this has something to do, of course, with the classification of morphemes. So how are morphemes generally classified? And sorry, the last person who actively participated in class who gave us all these answers, it was, please tell us your name. Mariana. Okay, fine, Mariana, thank you so much. So that was Mariana. Okay, how are morphemes generally classified? And we have practically already talked about that classification here as we were doing these tasks. And while you think, I would just like to say that I would have expected more students here. So I'm counted twice, so 39 as it says here, minus 2 is 37. 37 out of 90 students is really not very many, so I would have expected more. Okay, so how are morphemes classified and subclassified? So how are morphemes classified and subclassified? How are morphemes classified and subclassified? Okay, so according to whether they can stand on their own, they can be free and bound. Please give us an example of a free morpheme and an example of a bound morpheme. And you can use the handout. So what's any free morpheme here? Vladimir, you started telling us about this? No, I can't see your answer. Can you use your mic, please? It's much easier when you use mics. I can't see now your answer. They can fly. What about fly? Is it free or bound? Free. Okay. What about hopelessness? Where is the free morpheme? Where are the bound morphemes? Hopelessness, or unbelievably, or a transfer, or inject, or something like that. So an example that we've had. Or mushroom, or rubbish, or motherly, or deactivate. Let's say hopelessness. What's the free morpheme there? It's quite easy. It can be easier. Yeah, of course. Hope is the free morpheme. What are the bound ones? Dakle, vezane, one koje ne mogu same da se koriste, odnosno samostalno da se koriste. Ne kažemo samo less, ali možemo da kažemo hope. Pa ni lessness ništa ne znači specijalno. Dakle, koje su bound, onda očigledno. Koje su to vezane ovde morfeme? Naravno, less i ness. Okay. How are bound morphemes further divided? Let's now hear somebody else in addition to Vladimir. So how are bound morphemes divided? Well, okay, either Leah or Matea or whoever. Yes, please. Well, Leah is the first one listed here. Leah?
Okay. So bound morphemes can be further classified as either derivational or inflectional.
That's it. Derivational and inflectional. What does that mean?
Well, derivational, they're sort of used to form new words. For example, hope. And we add ness.
But if we add just ness, we would get hopeness, and there is no such a word.
I meant less.
Okay.
And we get a new word, hopeless. And inflectual, they have to deal with aspects of grammatical forms in a word. So, for example, when
aspects of grammatical function.
Yes, grammatical function.
Okay.
For example, when we have a verb ask and we add ed. and we get asked.
That's
ED
it.
is an inflectual.
So is that morphological process of inflection, is it a morphological process of actually creating new words as well?
No. It actually serves to form, show different aspects, grammatical aspects of different grammatical forms.
In a way, oh, okay. You're practically right about everything that you said. And just one additional question for you. What did exercise 1 deal with? So did we have here inflectional, did we have the derivation as a morphological process or inflection? So do we have derivation or inflection in payment or deactivate or motherly or unbelievably or unlikelihood or transfer and selfish? So what did we practice here? Derivation or inflection?
Derivation.
Indeed. Dakle, ono što smo radili ovdje u okviru ovog vežbanja i broj 1 jeste derivation. Na srpskom također može da se kaže derivacija, odnosno postoji srpski termin tvorba reči. Mi smo ovdje pravili zapravo nove reči. Iz pay smo izveli payment. Iz believe smo izveli unbelievably. Iz mother smo izveli motherly. Iz act smo izveli deactivate. Iz hope smo izveli hopelessness. Iz self smo izveli unselfish i tome slično. A onda smo rekli nemamo nikakve izvedenice u recimo deed ili liver ili rubbish ili manner, prosto to nisu nikakve izvedenice. Nema ovdje nikakvih tvorbenih, dakle derivacionih, derivativnih prefiksa i sufiksa. To je zapravo derivacija. Sve ovo što nam je Lea rekla, sve je to u redu. To je ono o čemu smo pričali i prošli put. Dakle, evo ih ovdje bound morphemes i one mogu da budu derivational. So derivation is practically a morphological process of creating new words by adding various prefixes and suffixes to the root. So in Serbian, we have the root uč, and then by adding various prefixes and suffixes, we can derive, that's why it's called derivation. We can derive quite a lot of words. Učiti, učenik, učiteljica, naučiti, izučavati, proučavati, naučnik, naučnica, podučavati i tako dalje, i tako dalje. And then Lea said, inflection is something actually quite different. In inflection, we also add some affixes, actually suffixes only. But the point is not to create new words. The point is simply to adapt the already existing words to suit a particular grammatical function. And this is what she said. She mentioned the verb to ask, and she said, hey, when we use this verb ask, in the past tense, we say asked, as in I asked him a question. When we say asked, we didn't create any new word. We simply adapted the already existing word, such as ask, to suit a particular grammatical function, namely for it to be used in the past tense. So everything that she said was practically correct. It was okay. Okay. Determine whether the words in each of the following groups are related to one another by processes of inflection or derivation. Define inflection and derivation and point to the similarities and differences between the two. This is also a very frequent exam question. So when we take a look at the words such as ask, asks, asking, asked, how are they related by the morphological process of derivation or inflection? Well, okay, Mateja and Milutin have raised their hands. So Mateja, yes, please.
Ask, asks, asking, asked, that's inflection.
Fine, please go on. Beauty, beautiful, beautifully, beautician, beautify.
Yeah, and so on, that's derivation.
That's derivation, indeed. Small and then smaller, smallest.
That's inflection again.
That's inflection, fine. Inventor, inventors, inventors, inventors.
Yeah, I think that's derivation as well.
No. When we, for example, use inventors in the genitive case, that's simply using that word in the genitive case, as in the second example.
Okay.
When we say the plural of inventor, which is inventors, we didn't create any new word. We simply use it in the plural. Here in the last example, when we say inventors, whatever the inventor's decision was to eventually not build that particular spaceship, but to wait for 2 or 3 additional years to perfect the technology. So I'm simply making up an example. So the inventor's decision was that, and so on. When we say inventors in the plural genitive, we didn't create any new word. We simply adapted that word to suit a particular grammatical function, that of the genitive plural. That's not derivation. That's
inflection.
That's inflection. And the last
and the
thing,
last one is
the last group of examples,
derivation.
hero. Derivation. Hero, heroism, heroic, heroically, heroine, heroina kao ženski heroj, jel da? Heroine. Okay, you are right. So once again, generally speaking, what are the differences, Matea, between derivation and inflection? Both of them are morphological processes, but they are different morphological processes.
Yeah, well, basically, inflectional affixes basically produce a new word, while derivation and derivational affixes basically how do we
No,
put
it is not the case that inflectional suffixes produce a new word. It's derivational suffixes that help us create new words. So we have a root such as uč, and then we have učiti, učiteljica, učenik, učitelj, naučiti,
yeah, actually, I swapped them,
izučiti, izučavati, naučnik, naučnica, proučavati, podučavati, sve to od jednog uč i onda okolo mali milion prefiksa i sufiksa. To je tvorba reči. Derivacija ili tvorba reči je jedno isto i to znači ovo što smo upravo rekli. Imamo root i dodajemo prefikse i sufikse i izvodimo, ne znam, imenice iz glagola, prideve iz glagola, priloge iz prideva, vazda nešto izvodimo. Ili iz jednog korena uči izvodimo glagol učiti i imenicu naučnik i učitelj i učiteljica i tako dalje i tako dalje.
So basically we can say that derivational affixes basically change the grammatical category of words.
But need they?
Well, they don't need to, but they can.
They can.
They can,
okay,
yeah.
So once
inflectional
again,
affixes, they don't do that. They basically...
Derivation is a morphological process of creating new words by adding affixes, prefixes, suffixes, and sometimes infixes as well. Infixes are actually more frequent in Serbian. Inflection is, once again, a morphological process, but it is not a morphological process of creating new words. It is a morphological process of adapting new words to suit a particular grammatical function. That's one difference. There are some other differences that we mentioned last time as well. What are they? For example, derivational affixes can be prefixes and suffixes and infixes. What about inflectional affixes?
I'm sorry, are you asking me or everyone else?
You started talking about
Yeah,
it.
well, inflectional affixes, they can only be suffixes.
Yeah, they can only be suffixes. Dakle, takvi su prosto ti flektivni nastavci za razliku od derivacionih, odnosno tvorbenih, da se javljaju samo kao sufiksi. Dalje, inflectional morphemes practically never change the grammatical category of a word. That's what we have here in the next example. So nouns remain nouns. When we use the word dog in the plural, that's still a noun. When we use the verb ask in the past tense, that's still the verb. And that's it. What about derivational affixes? And you said it actually already. You said it correctly. So derivational affixes can change the word class, but needn't. So give me examples of both things. When a derivational affixes does change a word class, and when it doesn't do so.
Hope, and then we have less. So then it's hopeless, and that basically changes the class.
The word class that changes the word class. Okay.
And then
an example where the word class is not changed.
Let's say successful, and then
success is a noun. Successful is an adjective. So the word class is changed there as well. So this
okay, well then successfully and then unsuccessfully.
Successfully and then unsuccessfully.
Yeah.
You are right. So the prefixes practically never change the word class. You are right. And also, for example, king and then kingdom. Kralj I kraljevstvo, obe su imenice. Relation and relationship, obe su stvari imenice. Okay, so these are some of the differences between derivational affixes and inflectional suffixes. And if both of them are present, which come last if both of them are present in a word? You've got it all here in this handout. Dakle, imamo recimo i derivacioni sufiks, odnosno tvorbeni sufiks i flektivni sufiks, koji uvek ide na kraj reči.
Are you asking me again?
Yeah.
Well, the inflectional suffixes come last.
Fine. And eventually, when we compare the number of inflectional suffixes and derivational affixes, which of them are more numerous?
What did you say? Which of them are
more numerous?
Well, I guess I'd say derivational affixes.
Yeah, okay. So how many inflectional suffixes are there in English?
Well, 8.
8. I pobrojali smo ih ovde. Budite spremni da ih pobrojite. Evo ih ovde. Znači, samo 2 koje se odnose na imenice, a u srpskom 56, toliko smo izračunali. Koji se odnose na glagole samo 4. U engleskom, u ovom srpskom ih ima na desetina, ja mislim da ih ima na stotine. I za prideve i priloge, naravno za one koji se mogu porediti, and est. I koji su tipično jednosložni. Naravno ima i priloga koji se ne mogu porediti. Yesterday je jedan prilog, ne može yesterday year ili nešto u tom smislu. Ali može nice pa nicer ili rich pa richer ili nešto u tom smislu. Dakle, obratite pažnju na sve ovo, budite u stanju da na smislen, logičan, argumentovan način predstavite razliku između fleksije i derivacije. Da ste u stanju da definišete šta je to fleksija i derivacija. Da kažete koje su to razlike između derivacije kao tvorbe reči i fleksije što uopšte nije nikakva tvorba reči. Ali gde opet imamo neke afikse, tačnije pre svega sufikse. Okay, thank you, Matija, so much. Now let's move on to exercise 4. The following sentences contain both derivational and inflectional affixes. Underline all the derivational affixes and circle the inflectional suffixes. The task under A has been done for you. So the strongest rower continued. So ust is practically an inflectional suffix here. That's why it has been circled. Ed in continued is also an inflectional suffix. It's there to practically help us use this verb in the past tense, and ust is there to help us use this adjective in the comparative. Rower, we have row, kao veslati, rower, bi bio neki veslač. Is practically a derivational suffix. So let's now we'll simply go on doing this. The farmer's cows escaped. I believe we heard Nadia today. Or was it some other Nadia? Milutin? Okay, so there are two Nadias. Is it right or not?
Yes, you heard me today.
Okay, so let's now hear somebody else. Milutin.
So in the next example, the farmer's cows escaped. I believe we have 3 inflectional affixes.
Okay, what are they? What are those?
Well, the first one is in the word farmers, and it's the basically like a case for a noun where we have a suffix s.
Okay, so it's practically the genitive singular forming suffix.
Yes.
Okay.
Then
what else?
In the next one, in the next word, we have cows, where we also have a suffix s. And
which is a plural forming morpheme. So it is a morpheme. It does have meaning. Fine.
And the last one is for the verb escape, where we are using the suffix ed to
okay, so it is a past tense forming morpheme and also an inflectional suffix. Are there any derivational affixes here?
I think there aren't any.
There is one.
The farmer, maybe in no, it can be an escape.
No.
In farm.
Yeah,
in
that's
farm.
right.
Yeah, we
Farm,
have the
farmer on the farmer.
Yeah, the root of the word is farm, and then we have er as a suffix.
That's it. So here it is. I forgot to circle s. So just a mo. It's insert and then a shape, and then let's say this, and then I do this, and then just a mo. I forgot where I should. Okay. So fill, no fill. So here it is. Okay. So 3 inflectional suffixes. So the genitive singular forming suffix, the plural forming suffix, and the past tense forming suffix. So once again, inflectional suffixes do not help us create any new word. They just help us adapt the already existing words to suit particular grammatical functions, which I have just listed 10 seconds ago. And here is indeed a derivational affix. It helps us derive a noun out of, well, either the verb to farm or the noun farm. Okay, fine. Let's go on. She quickly closed the book. So that was Milutin. Let's now hear somebody else. Milicevic.
So there are both inflectional and derivational affixes.
So what are they?
Quickly and closed. Closed is the derivational affix.
No, when you say closed and you say it's a derivational or whatever morpheme, it's not a morpheme. So there are 2 morphemes in closed. There are 2 morphemes in quickly. So mind you, sometimes a morpheme can indeed be a single word, but it needn't. Namely, a word can consist of several morphemes or several units of meaning. So what are the derivational affixes and inflectional suffixes here, if any?
So the derivational is quickly.
Because no, just li.
Li, yeah, excuse me.
Okay.
And the derivational is ed.
So that's the derivational one. Li. Quick is an adjective, quickly is an adverb. So li is very often an adverb forming suffix. So that's also a kind of a meaning. Namely, those words cannot be used interchangeably. For example, she was quick to do it. Or that's actually a very quick whatever, a very quick noun. On the other hand, we have quickly. He drove very quickly. So quick and quickly are 2 different things. One is an adjective, yet another one is an adverb. So li is there to tell us something along the following ones. Hey, I'm here to help you signal that I'm here to actually denote an adverb created out of an adjective quick. So that's kind of a meaning, actually. Li does have meaning, as opposed to just l or just e in this case. Okay, so li is a derivational suffix here. What other affixes do we have?
An inflectional is in ed, in closed.
Yeah. So that's the ed. It's not simply in ed, it is ed. So that's the ed suffix. Okay, so here it is. She quickly closed the book. She quickly closed the book. Li is a derivational suffix and ed is an inflectional one. Jim needs the New York copy. If you wish, you can go. Okay, let's ask somebody else. So the person who just popped in. Okay, Igor.
Yeah, so in this sentence, we have an inflectional suffix s in needs and a derivational suffix er in newer.
That's it. That's it. Fine. So Jim needs the newer copy. Both of... sorry, did you say that this was a derivational one or what?
Yes.
No, you are wrong. It's not derivational. So it
not
helps us actually adapt, it helps us use this adjective in the comparative. Naime, kad smo rekli noviji, mi nismo napravili novu reč. To je ponovo reč nov, samo što je upotrebljeno u komparativu, u tom konkretnom stepenu poređenja. A nikakvu novu reč mi tu nismo napravili. Dakle, inače to je ovde negde navedeno. Evo ovde. Richer, newer, to mu dođe isto. Mislim, strukturno je isto, ne znači baš isto, ali je strukturno isto. Dakle, ostavljam vremena da se ispraviš.
So in this case we have two inflectional
Indeed, two inflectional morphemes. Fine, two inflectional morphemes. Thank you, Igor. Now we move on to the task under 5, which we actually started doing last time within these slides. So before we start doing it, let's now talk a little bit about the difference between morphemes and allomorphs. So we never said anything about allomorphs today. We haven't said anything about allomorphs today. We talked about that last time. So what are allomorphs? And how are they different from morphemes? Or we can start doing the task and then, okay, Ksenia, yes?
Well, allomorphs are a variant of phonetic, so...
No, that doesn't mean anything. They're a variant of phonetic. Phonetic is an adjective. Dakle, rekla si, oni su varijante fonetskih.
Well, it's a variant of a morpheme. They don't change the meaning, but they might be spelled differently.
So please, once again, the last sentence, they?
They have the same meaning, but they might be spelled differently.
Okay, or actually pronounced differently. They needn't only be spelled differently. They can just be pronounced differently and spelled in the same way. Okay, so let's now go through these examples. Consider the following words and do the tasks that follow. So we have the words decide, prove, stop, lock, wait, rub, phone, and so on. Use the given verbs in the past tense and put down the variant of the ed suffix which you have used. This task has been done for you under A and B. So in decided, when we add the ed suffix, we pronounce it as id. In proved, he proved that I was wrong or something like that. The ed suffix is read as the. What about stop and then stopped? Ksenia, please go on.
It's read as t.
T. So it's once again written as ed, but it is pronounced as t. So like this, t. What about locked?
D.
No, it's not logged. It's locked. I locked the door. I locked it. I locked it. Locked. 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 I had the, but it's not the. It's not locked. It's actually quite difficult to pronounce locked. I locked. I logged it. Onda čujem kao da je na kraju g. I logged it. Ne. Dakle, ko je? Da li je id? Da li je t? Šta?
T.
D nije. T, da. Locked. A waited, šta imam?
Id.
Id se izgovara ono posljednje id, onaj id suffix. Rubbed.
D.
D, okay, so here it is. Found.
D again.
D again. Asked. He asked me a question. Asked.
T.
T, okay. Stayed. They stayed there. They stayed in that hotel. Sorry, yeah, the. Stayed. Okay, added. He added sugar to the mess.
Id.
Added. Fine. Tried. I tried it, but I couldn't do it.
The.
The, okay, tried. And finally, laughed.
T.
Dakle, laughed. Okay, so list the alternate forms of the past tense morpheme. So sometimes it's the, sometimes it's the, sometimes it's id. depending on the verb, and sometimes it's a completely actually different morpheme. Let's call it the irregular one, as in go and then went. In went, there are two morphemes, practically the morpheme go, and once again the plural forming morpheme with its allomorph irregular, practically. So now we have listed the alternate forms of the regular, practically past tense morpheme. What are these alternate forms of the same morpheme called, Ksenia?
Allomorphs.
Yeah, they are allomorphs. State the conditioning factors that account for the presence of the alternate forms of the past tense morpheme. State the conditioning factors. That's to say, now look at all the data that we do have and decide or tell us the rule when it is actually the variant or the allomorph, the t allomorph, or the id allomorph. And while you think, I'll once again just remind you that allomorphs are practically various positional variants of one and the same morpheme. They're in complementary distribution, that's to say the appearance of one. Actually, each of them has its own territory. So we are now on the lookout for their territories. And we actually mentioned that last Monday as well. We talked about their territories in great detail. So they're in complementary distribution, and the appearance of one rather than another or the other ones does not bring about any difference in meaning. Yes? Well, Vanya?
There is a difference in the way of spelling, so it's ease of spelling.
No, there is no spelling. There is no spelling difference here.
Yes,
when you write it down, decided and proved and stopped and locked and waited and rubbed and found and asked and stayed, everything gets in ed. There is no difference in spelling here. There is difference in pronunciation.
Yes.
Okay.
Ease of pronunciation, because sometimes after a given end of a word like decide, it's hard to say maybe with the sound of t, decided t. So we have ed, so it's more easily pronounced. For example, in stopped, it's hard to say stopped, so we have t because it's easier to pronounce it that way.
Okay, but what's the general rule? Is there any, how do we put it, how do we put all of what you have just said in linguistic terms? So just that something is easy or more difficult and so on, those are just some, that's correct, but those are just some impressions. And science is simply not, linguistics included, is not simply about impressions. It is about some hard facts. So what are some hard facts? What are some actual arguments that we can give and that help us rule, that actually help us guide us through the pronunciation of all of these things? So when does this allomorph appear? When does this allomorph appear? When does this allomorph appear? So let's figure out the rule on the basis of the facts that we have, on the basis of linguistic data. That's the crucial, or one of the crucial things that I want to achieve in these classes. So linguistic argumentation. That's the point.
I think it depends on which phoneme it ends, the given...
Yeah, it depends on the phoneme in which the given verb ends. So if the given verb ends in, for example, a voiced phoneme, such as prove, phone, stay, try, what do we have?
Then we have the allomorph the.
Okay, but that's not the case in every single case. For example, decide ends in the.
Yes, so because of that we have to add I, so it's easier to pronounce.
It's not I, it's E. The sound E, yes, the phoneme E. Okay. We talked about all of that last time. So here it is. This is what we said. And then, so when does it appear? It appears, that's what you started talking about. It appears after the, as in decided, and after t as well. So is in waited. When does t appear? It appears after voiceless consonants apart from t itself. And as far as the last thing is concerned, we said it 10 seconds ago, it appears elsewhere. Well, that's to say, after voice consonants apart from the and after all the vowels. So this is their distribution. This is the territory that each of them occupies. This is one territory, this is yet another territory, and this is yet another territory. And practically, why is it called there in complementary distribution? Well, these territories cover all the possible variants. I mean all the possible territories that they can appear in. Dakle, nakon tih nekih konsonanata, nakon tih nekih vokala I to je to, nema posle čega trećeg da se jave. Okay. So now we have stated the conditioning factors that account for the presence of the alternate forms of the past tense morpheme. Eventually, which alternate form makes the best underlying form and why? Which out of these three allomorphs can be considered to be basic and why?
I think it's the because it can be anywhere else except where we have, as you said, after alveolar stops and after voiceless consonants. So those are two particularly special places where we have ed or t, while d is everywhere else.
You're generally right. So first of all, practically what you said boiled down to this. D has the greatest distribution. Ima najveću distribuciju, drugim rečima pokriva najveći broj teritorija, da tako kažem. Odnosno najveću teritoriju pokriva. Otkud to, kako to? Pa javlja se posle svih vokala. Recimo u stay, e je vokal. A tih vokala ima preko 20 u engleskom. Javlja se posle svih zvučnih konsonanata. To je puno teritorije za jedno D. T se javlja pokriva nešto manju teritoriju. Javlja se nakon praktično bezuzvičnih konsonanata izuzev samog T. I na kraju id se javlja samo posle T i D. Pa ima najmanju teritoriju. So this practically represents, this pie chart represents the complementary distribution of the ED1 allomorphs. Okay, so D has the greatest distribution. And moreover, Vanya, is it also, does this make sense? Does this make logic or not? So, okay, D has the greatest distribution. And in addition to that, D can get devoiced after voiceless consonants. And after T and D, as you said already yourself, we insert E so as to ease pronunciation. Dakle, da li možemo da kažemo da je baš ovo D najbolja ova alternate form, it makes the best underlying form, ne samo zato što ima najveću teritoriju, što pokriva najveću teritoriju, nego zato što mogu druga dva alomorfa da se dovedu u logičnu vezu s njim i da se kaže, ej, taj D se obezvučuje nakon bezvučnih konsonanata, a dodaje mu se ispred toga id ako se javlja nakon D i T kao u tipa waited ili decided, prosto da bi izgovor bio lakši. Jel to ima smisla ili nema smisla?
Ima smisla, znači oba mogu da nastanu od D.
Tako je, oba mogu da nastanu od D. Pre nego li da je id glavno, pa od njega nastaje D i T. Nekako to nema mnogo veze. Dakle, još jedan put. Which alternate forms makes the best underlying form? D. Why? Because of two reasons. The first reason is that it covers the greatest territory. How come that it covers the greatest territory? Well, it appears after all the vowels and practically after all the voice consonants apart from D itself. So that's one reason. It covers the greatest territory. And yet another reason is that the other two allomorphs can be brought into a logical connection with itself, with D itself. Okay, fine. So far, so good. This was really good. Vanya, thank you so much. Identify the plural suffix allomorph appropriate for each of the nouns given below and state the conditioning factors that account for the presence of those alternate forms. So once again, identify the plural suffix allomorph appropriate for each of the nouns given below. Let's do that. It should be quite easy. So I can start doing it. So for example, in kiss, we have kisses when we use it in the plural. It's not kisses, it's not kisses, it's kisses. In lip, we have lips. So practically the plural allomorph here is s. In dog, it's z, dogs. In bear, it's bears. Let's go on. Let's have yet another one of you continue doing this for us. So we have one and the same plural forming morpheme, which can be realized in these three ways. Sometimes it is also realized as a zero morpheme. For example, there were 3 sheep in the field. 3 sheep. Where there are 7 aircraft on the runway. Ne postoji aircraft. Množina od reči aircraft je aircraft. Množina od reči sheep je sheep. Ali negdje se zaista javlja i naravno ovaj regularan način. Ali to jedno s se čita na različite načine, odnosno ima bar 3 različita alomorfa. Evo, pomenuo sam za prve 4 reči, hoću neko da nastavi ovo da radi. Sve ovo bilo za domaći, hajde ovo možemo odmah da uradimo. I radite to što je zadato za domaći. Učite, radite, odnosno možete i da ne radite, ali onda sami sebe kaznite tako što ne položite ispit. Mislim, ne treba vam veća kazna. Neću ja nikog ni na koji način da kažnjavam, oni sami sebe kazne ne učinjem. Pa čuli smo, Mati, ajmo...
Ja se izvinjam, pitanje...
Da.
Isključio sam se na sekundu, neko mi je kucao na vrata. I kad sam došao, rekli ste da ste uradili prvo 4. Uradili ste za lips, rekli ste za lips. Šta je to, da? Jel z, jel da?
Lips, s.
Aha, s, okej.
Da.
Ok, hvala.
Dakle, evo još jedan put, kisses, evo ga z, ovdje sam markiram kako nešto izgovore. Lip, pa idu lips, dog, to je dogs, bear, pa idu bears. Ovo su skroz proste stvari, hajmo neko da uradi ovo. Izvoli. Moram da delim, ovo ne mogu da gledam koje ime trenutno. Ko je?
Lazar.
Kako?
Lazar.
Lazar, koji Lazar?
Lazar Nakić.
Nakić, u redu je. Lazar, izvoli. Rash? Kao osip. Rashes, ok, evo ga ovdje, znači is. Kako? Flea?
Flea, fleas. Isto.
Tako je, fleas, kao buva, pa flea market, jel da buvlja pijaca.
Book, books.
Naravno, books, evo markirao sam. Patch?
Patch, patches.
Patches, ok. Lane?
Lanes.
Lanes.
Fiddle. Fiddles.
Fiddles, tako je. Tray, kao poslužavnik.
Trays.
Trays, u redu.
Garage, garages.
Or garages, or garages, zapravo je is. Ajde, neka je garage, garages. Odnosno, na američkom engleskom bilo bi garage, garages, ok. Tenth, kao desetina.
Tenths.
Tenths, ok.
X's.
X's, ok. X is, dakle sekire, u redu je, dakle sa is. Lodge.
Lodges.
Lodges i na kraju quiz i
quizzes.
Quizzes. Okay, tako smo uradili prvi deo. So we have identified the plural suffix allomorph appropriate for each of the nouns given below. Now we should state the conditioning factors that account for the presence of those alternate forms. So what are the conditioning factors? Why sometimes s? Why sometimes z? Why sometimes is? When does s appear? When does is appear? And so on. When does is appear? So it appears in quizzes, lodges, rashes, patches, garages, garages, so practically it appears after s, as in kisses, after z, after j, sh, j, and ch. Practically, it appears after alveolar fricatives, which are s and z, after alveopalatal fricatives, which are j and sh, and after alveopalatal affricates, such as j and ch. I'm now trying to speed up a little bit because we're at the end of the class. But you should be able to figure out all of these things. When does s appear? As in lips, as in tenths. So when does s appear? Lips, Why not lips? Lips. It's lips. When does s appear? Lazar, can you go on, or Matija? Samo logično razmišljajte. Zašto u lip nije lips? Mislim, ne može ni da se izgovori tako. Tenths. Pre nego li tenths. Aha. Izvoli.
Može zato što je stop.
Ne.
Nije zbog stops, ok.
Ne, zato što je voiceless ovo p. Jel da? Zato se s koristi, koji je isto tako voiceless. So practically, s appears after voiceless consonants, apart from s itself, sh and ch, which are also voiceless, but we use is after them. And z appears after voiced consonants, as in lane, pa lane z. Tray kao poslužavnik, a kao vokal je voiced, pa odatle opet trays, a ne trays. Flea, i je vokal, on je voiced, i od tuda ide fleas kao buve. Dogs, g, nije nikakav, recimo, stop, on je a velar sound, ali a voiced velar sound. I ovo u vezi sa voicingom se stalno zapravo javlja s ovim s, z i tako dalje. Dakle, stalno se ovi s i z prilagođavaju tim stvarima. Sada da uradimo koje je vežbanje sa ispitem. Poslaću vam naravno i ovo. Underline all the roots and circle all the bound morphemes in the given words. Dakle, personality, unselfishness, imali smo danas slično, finger. Jel biste znali ovo da uradite? Recimo u finger koliko je da morfema ima? Dakle, treba da podvučemo korene i da zaokružimo vezane morfeme. Izvoli, izvoli. Samo napred. Odmah se javite na mikrofon.
Pa mislim, javljao sam se već.
Aha. Izvoli.
Personality, root is person, and then...
Naravno, a u finger šta je root?
Pa finger celo. To je...
Tako je, a nije, na primjer, finger, pa super. Ok. Ako treba ovde još nešto, recite, možemo da se vratimo. Dalje, underline all the derivational affixes and circle all the inflectional suffixes in the words in the given sentence. People's carelessness deforested entire areas, farmers say. Danas smo imali i tipa hopelessness, ovdje je carelessness. Imali smo ovaj genitive forming suffix. Imali smo ovaj plural forming suffix. Imali smo i reč fama, pa i farmers. Vrlo slično smo radili. Zato ću ovo samo tako da pročitam i ostavljam vama da radite. Pod 3. In the word tracks, s is pronounced as s, tracks, whereas in the word dogs, s is pronounced as z, dogs. In this case, circle the letter in front of the correct answer. Z is an allophone of s. Z and s are examples of two different phonemes. Z is an allomorph of s, and z and s are examples of two different morphemes. Explain why you have chosen this answer and why you have not chosen some other answer. Dakle, šta je ovo s u tracks? Da li je to alofon, ili su s i z ovde foneme, ili je to neki alomorf, ili su to primjeri dve morfeme? Šta je ovo ovde? Ovo su i tipična ispitna pitanja. Naravno, uvek mogu da pitam i šta je morfologija, šta je morfema, šta je to fleksija, šta je derivacija, so what's derivation, what's inflection, kakva je razlika između njih, što ih hoću, ali neretko su pitanja ovakva. Hoću odmah sve to da mi se primeni, pre nego li da se mnogo raspričava, a da onda ne zna da se primeni. Izvoli.
Poda.
Ni podrazno, ne.
Okay, on.
A zašto ne? Ajde objasni zašto ne, to je vrlo bitna stvar, nije bitno što ste pogrešili, mislim.
Ne znam, još mi nije mi jasno to kako sve to funkcioniše, kako se odnose.
Prosto je, ne može prostije, samo da smo svesni definicije foneme i morfeme, alofona i alomorfa.
Onda je z alomorf s, jel da?
Tako je, a zašto nije alofon? Seti se definicije alofona spram alomorfa i uopšte morfeme spram foneme.
Pa onda je u stvari alofon manji od alomorfa, da?
Pa ne mora da znači, ne. Alofon može da bude jedan glas. Dakle, ovdje imamo jedan jedini glas. Mi se pitamo za status jednog jedinog glasa. To je S u treks. Jedan jedini glas može da bude i fonema, a može da bude i morfema. Fonema je ako nema značenje, a morfema je ako ima značenje. Recimo, i to smo opet pričali o tome i prošli put i nekoliko nedelja unazad. Ja sam otišao tamo, a oni su otišli onamo. A ovdje ima značenje. Ili, Pera i Mika i Laza su upravo došli. Ovo i ima značenje, dakle to nije samo fonema, to je morfema, ona ima značenje. Foneme nemaju značenje. Samim tim ni alofoni nemaju značenje. Morfeme imaju značenje, samim tim i alomorfi imaju značenje. Dakle, ovo s, pitamo se, ima li značenje ili nema značenje? Kad to razjasnimo, a prosto je, ne može prostije da bude, automatski će se dva odgovora obrisati. Tam možemo da ih ne gledamo više, oni ne postoje. Jel ovo s u tracks i z u dogs znače nešto ili ne znače ništa, nego su tako samo nekakva slova i glasovi? Prosto je ne može prostije, znači nema prostijeg pitanja.
Pa znači množinu.
Drugi, tako je, dakle imaju neko značenje. Prema tome, čim imaju značenje, ovo nisu nikakvi ni alomorfi, ovi alofoni, niti foneme. Prosto ovo pod A i B više ne gledamo. Samo sad gledamo šta je pod C i D. A imali smo drugačiji slučaj ranije. Enga, ono kad se javi u enga, dakle to samo po sebi nema nikakvo značenje. U anglistika nema nikakvo značenje. Dakle, tu je samo to jedan alofon foneme N. Ali ovdje su u pitanju alomorfi jer imaju značenje. E sad, je li ovo malomorf ili morfema? Ove dve stvari. Dve posebne morfeme ili dva alomorfe iste morfeme? Već si zapravo rekao.
Pa, pod C tačno, to je u stvari...
Pod C, tako je. Z is an alomorph of S. Why? Well, because it is a unit of meaning. It is the smallest unit of meaning. It can be broken down into smaller meaningful units. And because Z appears so as to match the voicing of the previous sound. To je to. To je zašto je to alomorf. And they are in complementary distribution. Each of them has its own territory. The appearance of one rather than the other does not bring about any difference in meaning. Možda smo mogli da kažemo dogs, što je malo neobično da se kaže, ali ljudi bi nas razumeli. There were 3 dogs barking at me. Pa razumljivo je. Dalje, zašto nisu različite morfeme? Pa nisu, obe znače jedno isto, znače plural, prema tome oni su alomorfi jedne iste morfeme. Zašto nisu alofoni ili foneme? Pa zato što imaju značenje. Foneme nemaju nikakvo značenje. Recimo, o u kola ili nešto tako, ili o u oko nema nikakvo značenje. Ali o, i to su onda dve foneme, o, k, o, dakle 2 puta o. Ali recimo pričali smo o Peri, Miki i Lazi, o ima neko značenje. O u smislu about, to je onda morfem. I tako objasnite zašto ste odabrali taj odgovor koji ste odabrali i zašto niste odabrali neki drugi odgovor. The fact that in the word dogs s is pronounced as z means that z has undergone assimilation of voicing, assimilation of the place of articulation, or assimilation or elision. Šta je ovdje tačno? Može isti student da nastavi ako želi. Da li beše Vanja? Ili ko već beše? A i sad sam rekao...
Mislim da je po zvučnosti. Da.
Tako je, po zvučnosti. I onda se objasnja zašto baš po zvučnosti. Pa zato što je g zvučno, pa se i s po svojoj zvučnosti prilagođava ovom g. Zašto nije assimilation of the place of articulation? Pa nikako se place of... Mislim, nije ovo, kad je s postalo z, ono nije postalo velarno. nego je samo prešlo u svoj zvučni parnjak. Dakle, nije se ni na koji način promenilo the place of articulation. I s i z imaju jedno isto place of articulation, a to je alveolar place of articulation. I svakako nije elision jer nije ništa izbrisano. Dakle, hoću tako lingvističke argumente sve vreme. Oni koji znaju to da urade, a shodno onome što je cilj kursa, što je predstavljeno u onom silabusu, odnosno nastavnom programu kursa koji smo dali na početku, oni će položiti. Idemo dalje, pod 5. Sad ovde true i false, nekad pitam, a zašto ste odabrali taj odgovor, bilo da je true ili false? Kaže ovako. Derivation is a morphological process of adapting words to suit a grammatical function. There are only 8 derivational affixes in English, 2 which pertain to nouns, 4 which pertain to verbs, and additional 2 which pertain to adjectives and adverbs that can be compared. Is this true or false?
It's false.
Why?
Because this talks about inflections.
This is the definition of inflection. Fine, perfect. A morpheme is the smallest contrastive unit of language. True or false?
False.
Why?
Phoneme is the smallest contrastive unit of language.
That's right. And a morpheme is the smallest meaningful unit of language. Okay. In the word inject is a bound root. True or false?
I think it's false.
Why? You're right.
Because it doesn't mean anything by its own.
No. It does mean something on its own. In means u. Inject znači ubaciti. Project, kad se neka slika projektuje, pro znači unapred. Pa se dakle projektuje napred, recimo na zid neka slika. Dakle, to in, pro, imaju znači. In, kako da nema značenja? Zašto se onda injekcija uopšte zove injekcija? Ne zove se recimo outjekcija ili projekcija, nego baš injekcija, jer se nešto ubacuje. Taman posla da nema značenja. Nego da li je bound root ili nije bound root? Ako jeste, ok. Ako nije, što nije? A pričali smo o ovom pre pola sata ili tako nešto. Da?
Jacked is a bound root.
Jacked is a bound root, o tome smo pričali. To je od jako, jacere, jeci, jaktom, što znači baciti, ali prosto ne može samo da se kaže jacked. Kao što može da se kaže samo hope u hopelessness ili nešto tako. I na kraju, dakle ovo je false. I na kraju, in one of the previous stages of the development of English, I sing, you sing, he sings used to be expressed this way. Ich singe, thou singest, he singeth. Ovo imate na časovima književnosti kad se čita tako staroengleska književnost. Singeth ili nešto u tom smislu. In these cases, or est, and eth suffixes are all inflectional and not derivational morphemes, just as it is now the case with the s suffix in he sings. Is this true or false? Dakle, da li su ovo zaista flektivni sufiksi? Obratimo pažnju, u nemačkom je zapravo slično. Ich singe, du singst, singt. Baš se vidi da su engleski i nemački srodni jezici, da su germanski jezici. Pa su se u engleskom dosta ovi nastavci izgubili. Je li ovo tačno ili netačno? Jel se ovo može smatrati flektivnim morfemom?
Da.
Da, tačno je, tako je. To je true. Ok, eto to je to. Naravno, učitat ću vam ovo u našu učionicu. Sada ostaje da dam poene. Volao bih da je više ljudi došlo, ali na kraju nedolaženje se na neki način, da tako kažem, plaća time što ljudi padnu na ispitu i onda se pitaju gdje sam bio. Ali dobro, svačija je privatna stvar šta će da radi. Idemo ovako. Ana Janković. Bilo je danas puno poena, to mi je jako drago. Čini mi se najviše do sada. Onda Katarina Vojinović. To je isto jedan poen. Onda je Sanja Marković. To je jedan poen, današnji poen. Onda Cenić. Ana. To je isto jedan poen. Nađa. Nisam siguran da su se obe Nađe danas javile, ovdje ima dve Nađe. Ova Nađa Nešić ili druga Nađa? Nije ova Nađa, dobro. Nađa, ovdje je upisano da se nešto pogrešno upisao. Da je ovo trebalo prošli put Nađa da upišemo ovaj jedan put?
Da, imali smo i prošli put.
Dobro, da, i meni se čini da ima. Onda sam prošla negdje grešno upisao ovdje, tako da sam ovo ostao ovdje jedan, već upisan. Dobro, idemo dalje. Vasilije. Vasilije Nikolić. Ajda. Natalija. Bila je Pahnoglu Natalija. Bila je i čini mi se još jedna Natalija, tako? Bar još jedna.
Krstić.
A da, tako je Krstić, to je isto bili jako lepo. Krstić. Ko još? Je bila možda i treća Natalija, ne? Mislim, ne? Nije ovo treća? Onda dalje, bila je...
Gdje smo s ovo Natalija, čini mi se.
Dobro. To ima vidim i Petrović. Mnogo nezgodno ovako kad se ne vidim. Obično zapamtim sve. I vrlo znam da prepoznam, ovako mi baš nezgodno. Lea Perić. Onda Mateja. Lepa Matejević četvrti poen, ali jako lepo. Milutin. I kod njega četvrti poen. Dakle, uvek prednost imaju oni bez poena, ali potom su se javili. A nekad ja prozovam kad se niko ne javio, to deluje da se osobo logovala. Ulogovala Milić. Good. Ksenija. Ima bar dve Ksenije. Ksenija i ja. Stojanović, nego Mitić je bio Ksenija.
Da, Mitić.
Dobro. Vanja. Njega. Lazar Nikić.
Nakić.
Pa Nakić, pardon, da je tako. Nakić, u redu, izvinjavam se, Nakić. To je ono što sam ja zabeležio. Ima li nekog da sam... Ma i Natalija Petrović je bila. Bar sam ja tako zapisao. Samo da vidim Natalija. Natalija Petrović ima, pa... A ne, i Krstić. Onda ja sam stavio samo P, izgleda da je Pahnoglu, a ne Petrović. Ispravite me ako grešim. Baš je bilo puno. Recite. Da,
izvinite, ali i Velimir je isto davao odgovore.
Tako je, Velimir jeste. Velimir Jovašević, tako je, i to čini mi se više puta. Dobro. Da, tako je. Još neko? Zato ovako i dajem, da tako kažem, javno da me ispravite i da vidite da možete da vidite sve i koje je bilo, svaki student koliko je dobio i da možete da me ispravite. A i sve vreme vam je dostupna tabela, poslao sam vam link. Jedino što ne možete sami da upisujete poene, što je normalno. Dobro, znači učitat ću ove sample exam questions, to je jedna stvar, a učitat ću i ovo tekst iz Julove knjige za naredni čas, tada će biti word formation processes, da se unapred uputite tu to šta ima i učite, radite, trudite se. Ako to radite, zaista je skroz lako i prosto i tako. Recite, je li ovo bar generalno bilo jasno danas? Je li jasnije šta su ove morfeme? Šta su alomorfi? Kakva je razlika možda između morfologije i fonologije?
Mislim, meni je jasno.
Je li jasno kako da damo neki lingvistički argument, da se pozivamo na neke lingvističke termine i tako. To je osnovna stvar. Znači, malo da se uputimo u neke termine, u neku elementarnu lingvističku, zaista elementarna ova lingvistička analiza, prosta da ne može prostija, i zaista osnovna, a u isto vreme adekvatna za osnovne studije, jer to su nove studije, ima i kasnije master studije i doktorskih studija, ima na stranim univerzitetima i postdoktorskih studija. Ovo je zaista elementarno, baš onako najosnovnije. I najosnovnija neka lingvistička analiza. Eto tako, dobro, dosta smo se zadržali, 10:18. Pozdravljam vas, hvala lepo. Ćao, čao. Zdravo.
Doviđenja.
Bye bye.